Hello nursing students, welcome to this introductory video to Nursing 612 Advanced Practice Pathophysiology. This video will basically give you an overview of how the Blackboard site for this course is laid out and how to navigate throughout the site. As you can see, we are starting on the front page, and I will take you through basically step by step all the areas of the course. So starting out with the announcement page, you will see here that we have already one announcement placed, and this is a very, very important area that I encourage you to check on a daily basis. Most of the time when your instructor will make an announcement, an email will be sent out at the same time, but in some instances that is not the case, so I would definitely again encourage you once a day to go on here. At the same time, since I mentioned emails, it is very important that you do check your SPS email account on a daily basis, at least once a day, because we use that as a main way of communicating with our students. So as you can see, this is our first announcement, and it's basically a little welcome to you for this semester. We have laid out a little bit about the structure of the course, how to get started for the first week. So when you have a chance, just read through, and you will have the first few days up to a week covered. It would also give you a little hint on how to ask your instructor questions, what resources to use, how to get technical assistance, etc. Now we are going to navigate through this site by using the tabs on the left-hand side of your screen. As you can see, it starts out with announcements, instructor information, course information, etc. So by clicking on these links, obviously you are going to get into a different area, and we can start with instructor information. This is now a template because we don't know necessarily who the instructor is going to be for the upcoming semester, but this is an important area where you will find, first of all, a little bit about your professor. You can find out a little bit of the background, and also, more importantly, the contact information in terms of how to get a hold of your professor. There will be email address. Also, it's going to be a virtual office with office hours posted. Some professors will choose to do this via phone, some via Skype. So please take note of what hours of the day or days of the week that will be, and then you can contact the professor accordingly. Most of us are very lenient in terms of if you email the professor, we can do obviously communication outside of office hours. There will also be a picture, which you will have a picture of yourself as well. Then we're going to go to course information. This is a very resourceful area, and we're going to basically go from the top. So if you start out with the Cuny SPS Graduate Student Handbook, this is a very informative handbook where you'll basically get all the policies and an overview of the program and the nursing, the whole nursing program overall. There are 4 attestations that you have to sign. It should have been done in the orientation, but in case you missed it, this is just a reminder that you also need to do so, and also how to scan those attestations with your signature if you have not handed them in. Next down, we have the syllabus. This, if you're going to waste any paper in this virtual course, this is the one I would waste my paper on, because just to have this in your bag and refer to this, or obviously use an electronic device, but definitely download it. So you will have an updated syllabus for your semester for the course, and basically it's going to tell you week by week, what assignments are due, what reading is due, objectives, etc. It also have information about the discussion board, grading, and lots more important information. You will find all the information on this site as well, but at times you don't have the availability of using your electronics. So instead of going into weekly materials, for example, you will again find the week by week setup of what the expectations are. So again, syllabus very important to download and or print. Then we have the textbooks that's going to be used, and these can be purchased on your own. They are weekly articles. In addition to that, is going to be posted in the weekly material, and I'll get to that when we go into that tab. We will get those actually through the library. So academic integrity, you will find that in the nursing handbook as well, but this is just a reminder about the policies for Cuny SPS, the nursing program. We take academic integrity and plagiarism very, very seriously. So please make sure you read this carefully and obviously follow the rules that we have in our program. That also means that for every assignment that you do, there's going to be something called safe assign that you're going to submit or agree to when you submit your assignment. Again, I will go a little more into detail about that when we get to the assignment tab. But basically, you are signing that you have not used any form of plagiarism, and basically your assignment will be scanned for any plagiarism when before it is submitted to the instructor. So we basically get a breakdown of where all your references are taken from, and that it was done appropriately. Therefore, if you have an assignment or you're late, etc., you cannot email that directly to the professor. Again, it has to be submitted through SafeAssign. So I'll get more into that when we go into the assignment tab. There's also an etiquette policy that basically explaining that the university prohibits the use of university online resources or facilities. Again, there's a link here that you can read more closely about the etiquette policy. Next down, we have the rubrics for the courses, and they're actually not listed here because they're so detailed in the assignment tab. So we actually have a separate folder there, but it's just, again, a reminder that we will be strictly abiding to assignment rubrics when we do our grading. So it's important that you're aware of, the expectations when before you submit an assignment. We also have a lateness policy. This is also listed in your syllabus. So just being aware that if you are late submitting any assignments, you could get a penalty for up to 10% each day that you are late. However, with that said, we are very aware, the instructors in both this course and in the nursing program in general, that you do have a life outside of SPS. So as long as you are, telling us ahead of time, and that is really the key, ahead of the deadline of an assignment, that there are issues going on, and that you just cannot make the assignment on time, we will usually work with you to find an extension for your deadline. Obviously this can't be an ongoing issue with every single assignment, but again, we know that emergencies do happen, so please just communicate with us. That is the most important. In other words, you can't come, a week after the assignment was due saying that, oh, I was late because of this or that. So be proactive and communicate ahead of time. Then we have a message from Dr. Riley. Here is a YouTube video that she is basically talking about the nursing program, very valuable to watch, so I strongly encourage you to do so. And then, of course, we're going to have a place for this video right here. And our final video is about APA style. The difference between coding versus paraphrasing, which some students, even at this level, sometimes gets a little confusing because, yes, it can be confusing. So again, this goes back to plagiarism and, following our policy. So being, aware of the difference is very important. So very valuable to watch. You can also find information about this on the library website, and there's actually an APA tab as well, as you can see up here. Let's see, right up here. There we go, APA guidelines. Okay, so you can find it there as well. Okay, and finally we have the Baruch, a link to the Baruch Newman Library. Here you can find obviously any information that you want, but we are also going to have a listing of all our journals for this course that are on reserve. So when we have something written and there's a link to that journal, if it is not available directly via the link, it will go via the Newman Library. And you can obviously search for anything here. It's a great resource. Okay, so that was about our course information. Next, we're going to go into our weekly materials tab. And this is, of course, a very important area because here you are going to find, what the expectations are of you from week to week. And that, includes all the 15 weeks for this course. Again, you will find this also in print in our syllabus, but it's a little more detailed here, and you also have direct links again to the resources that we're going to use. The first week of this specific semester course is a little confusing because it's a very short week first, actually just 2 or 3 days, and then we have a full week. So I'm not going to show you that as an example, but basically for the first 2 days you are just going to do a little introduction of yourself, and I'll explain that when we go into the discussion board and post the picture, and then you're going to go into an actual real week work in terms of answering discussion questions, etc. So let's use week 2 as an example. So basically on the front page here, you will see there's a heading, what the theme is going to be for that week. So infection, inflammation, and immunity. Then you are going to see the tasks for the week. And these are just basically, very short, heads up what the expectations are going to be. So you have a reading, you have from the textbook, you have an article that needs to be read, you have a PowerPoint that you also need to review, and then there's a case study, and then a discussion board assignment. And also the last thing is that group are going to be assigned for the collaborative project. So that's one of our assignments. And your instructor is basically going to assign groups that are going to work together. So in order to get more details about what is going to be expected for this week, you basically click on the link for week 2, as you can see, and that goes for every single week. So here you see in week 3, the same thing for week 1. It will bring you into a link, and we even have a little reminder here to click on the heading to access the weekly information. So once you go in here, you're going to see that you're going to have first the learning outcomes for the week. Here you are going to see basically a listing of all the expectations in terms of outcomes, and then you have readings and web links. So here you're going to find, first of all, the textbook reading, and in this case you're also going to have case study due. So there is a reading from the case study book. And then you have also an attached file with basically a PDF article that is also an expectation to be read and will be used for your assignments for the week. Following that, you have slides, videos, and multimedia. From week to week, we might have a difference in what is listed here. For this week, as you can see, everything is in PowerPoint format. So you basically just click on the link and it's going to take you to the PowerPoint that you will be studying for the week. Then next down, we have the case study. So this is basically giving you a little heads up about the case study due for this week, or that it actually is a case study due for the week. But the case study itself, you're going to find in the assignment section. So once we get to the assignment tab, it will make more sense when you see the case study listing, because it's going to give you the exact date of the week that it is due. On the very bottom, and this goes for every week that you actually have a discussion question due, you will see and basically explanation of what is going to take place on the discussion board. So the discussion board is really our virtual classroom. Instead of us meeting and we having lecture, etc., this is the online classroom that we are going to have our virtual discussions. So when you have a discussion board assignment, you're going to see that there's a topic. In this case, it's immunizations, and then there's going to be, explanation of what we want to discuss for that week. You're also going to see the requirements, but that is also going to be listed on the discussion board itself. So if you click on this link, it's going to actually bring you to the discussion board itself. You could also use the tab. As you can see, the discussion board tab is right here on the left. So either way is fine, but let's now go to the week 2, which we were focusing on. Let's see, that was week 1. Here's week 2. So here you see this was the heading, immunizations, and then it gives you the specifics about the assignment, what is expected to be. It's usually a question that you need to answer, and the expectation for that initial post where you actually do research is going to be 150 to 300 words. This is also going to be clearly written in the rubric for the discussion board, how we grade it. But the initial post, 150 to 300 words, it should be APA formatted, and it should have references. So in other words, we need to know that you have researched this question or these questions and found relevant information in peer-reviewed journals or other resources, and that you utilize that to answer the question. In addition to that, you are going to, so when you actually answer the first question, you're going to make a new thread. So you are having your own thread for that question. And then in addition to that, you are going to actually answer to your peers. You're going to read some of your peers' posts, hopefully as many as you possibly can. And then you're going to give feedback. Maybe there was some information that you had read that, you felt you were missing in that post. Maybe there was some things that you learned that you were not aware of, and you can give feedback on that. So it's, in other words, an ongoing discussion. The peer posts have to be 100 to 150 words, but you do not have to have references for those. That can be your own words that you are discussing. So, and I'll go a little more into, the specifics of grading. You will have on the very bottom, when the due dates are. So, we will have a due date for the initial question every week, or not every week, but every week we have a discussion question. The initial post is going to be due Wednesday by midnight or by 11:59 night Eastern Standard Time. And then all the responses has to be due by Sunday, that following Sunday, also again at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time, PM Eastern Standard Time. Just one note, and this is very important. The discussion board will close at 11:59 on that Sunday night. So in other words, if you log on at 12 midnight on that Sunday, actually Monday morning, you will no longer see that question. This may sound, very abrupt and, very unfair for the ones, if you didn't get a chance to post, because then obviously, you will be penalized in terms of not being graded because the post is not there. However, if we let the discussion question continue, it's very, very difficult for both students to keep, the questions apart from each other, and also for instructors to grade fairly. So please be aware that you have to post, before the deadlines. And that's why it's also highlighted. So as you can see, when you go down, you have, all the discussion questions. It's not for every week. We start out almost weekly, but then when you get a little further into the semester, here we are jumping from 7 to 9, for example. So just being aware of that. When you do click on, let's go back to our immunization here for week 2. When you do now click on this week 2 discussion question, you will see that there's going to be a blank page because nobody has posted. It is very important that when you actually post your first thread, basically, or the answer to the question that is asked, you create a thread, okay? And then when you answer to other peers in your class, you're obviously going to reply to that, specific question. But initially, you need to create your own thread. You just click here, and then, as you can see, you are going to make the topic, and then just write your response. Feel free to, first verbalize it on a Word document, for example, and then copy and paste it, in here, and then it will just, when you submit it, it gets up on the discussion board. Also be aware that you can attach files. So, for example, if you find a very interesting article, and you're using that as a reference, you can attach that so your fellow classmates can see it as well. So basically, that's how the discussion board goes. And again, just to remind you, you can click directly from weekly material into discussion board, or you can go into the discussion board tab. If you go into the tab, you see that you will have, exactly the same setup. Just note that on the very top of the discussion board, and I know, by the way, I'm jumping over assignments. We'll get back to that in a minute. You have an Ask Your Instructor thread. This is a very important forum, because if you have any questions about this course, about specific material, etc., then I'm sure that many of your peers will have the same question. So instead of emailing your instructor separately, use this forum to ask any question about the course, or make any suggestions. Your instructor will respond to a discussion board posting within 24 to 48 hours. That is, one of our policies. And usually it's within 24 hours. So we will get back to you quickly. And it is very helpful, I think, not just for one individual student, but for the whole group. For the first week, this is actually the first few days of the course, you are going to basically do a little introduction of yourself. So we all want to get to know each other because we're not going to see each other in person. You have to do two things. That's one thing. Basically post a picture of yourself. There's a instruction here how to upload the picture, and also how to resize it, because sometimes you get a really big picture. And then you're going to do, again, a little introduction about yourself, whatever you want us to know about you. Basically, it can be very informal. So background, education, where you work, where you're from, interests, etc., etc. And you will see your instructor also will post something here, even though we are also in the Instructor Information tab. And then again, we go into the discussion questions directly after that. Okay, so that is basically your discussion tab. So let's go back to assignments, because this is also an important tab, as most of them are. Here you have the academic integrity again. So again, you will find this both in the course information. You will find it in the handbook, and here we go again, just as a reminder for your assignments. So it also again lists the importance of safe assign, and you can't get out, outside of submitting any work by not using the safe assign. So we'll show you that directly in this tab. Again, a reminder about late submission policy, but again, remember, communicate with your instructor to avoid any late deduction in terms of your grade, because 10% per day is a lot. Okay, here you have an assignment rubric folder. So this is basically an overview. It's kind of nice to be able to download any of these rubrics. If you click on the folder, you'll see that you have a discussion board rubric, you have a case study, teaching plan rubric. We're going to have many case studies actually. But the reason we put this folder in here as a PDF document is that some students really like to have it next to them as they're, writing the assignment, just to be reminded that, listen, I want to have, the highest grade possible, so I'm going to follow the, the absolute maximum grading or points I can get according to the rubric. Your instructor will use these rubrics to correct your work. So So again, please do not submit anything without looking at these rubrics. These rubrics are also available when you're actually going in to submit your assignment, and I'll show you that in a minute. But again, these are the PDF formats. They're exactly the same, so you can download those if you want to. All right, let's go back to the assignment tab again. Even though the discussion board rubric is available also in other areas, you have it here again as a PDF format. So here it gives you a little more detail about, you know, the expectations for the discussion board. The bottom line, we already mentioned the amount of words and where you need references, etc. But I will read this to you because it is important to know that students are expected to log into the discussion forum, the virtual classroom, a minimum of 2 days during assignment week. On 2 different days, that should be done. And on each of these 2 days, the student will be expected to post an initial response and or respond to a classmate's post, a minimum of 2 substantive posts. So bottom line, in total, at least 3 posts are required. 1 initial post with APA citation, and then 2 substantive peer posts, which needs only link if you're referencing it, but they do not have to be referenced, the peer responses. An APA format is not required in the responses, only in the first post, that when you are creating your thread in response to the question. So I hope that makes sense to you. If you read the rubric, I think it will make even more sense. But it is important that you follow these requirements because you will be graded accordingly. And if there are any questions, please, again, use the discussion forum, ask your instructor to, post any questions about the discussion board there. Our next folder is the case studies. This is a very important folder because if you click on here, it will open in a second. Yes, here you have first again the case study rubric. If you want to download this as a document, it's in PDF format in the other areas. But if you scroll down, you're going to see it's approximately bi-weekly case studies. In one area, it's going to be 2 weeks back to back because we have spring break coming up. Otherwise, it's pretty much bi-weekly. So here you have, for example, case 2 week study. So there are 2 case studies that are listed. Basically, we're splitting the class in 2. So the last names that begins with A and through J are going to complete case study 3, and then the last name beginning with K and ending with Z complete case study 17. So please pay attention to those. So you only need really to open one case study. Let's say, your name was J. You would only go to case study number 3. That is listed as a Word document, and you can read the case study there. And then basically you're going to, answer the questions accordingly. And I'll show you that in a minute. The due date is here below. And now if you click on the link to the case study itself, you're going to see basically the submission area. So when that opens, okay, so here you see, and this actually kind of goes for any assignment that you have. First, you have the due date on the top. You have the rubric. So here you're going to get the rubric again, but hopefully you had downloaded it and read it already before, the submission. And then you again have the links to the case studies. Now, if you scroll down, you're going to see what we talked about in terms of safe assign. First of all, you have 2 options. Most students, I think, will write their own assignment. In this case, it will be the case study in the Word document format, and then basically upload it by, browsing your own computer and uploading the Word document. You could also use the text submission where you write the submission directly into this area. But again, again, it's very rare that we see that, but again, you have the option. Here are all the formats that are accepted in terms of submission. Now, before you submit, there is the Plagiarism Tool, and this is basically what we refer to in terms of Safe Assign. So you have to check this box that I agree to submit my papers to the Global Reference Database. Once you click this and you submit, or you can add any comments, once you submit, basically your paper is going to be reviewed by the reference database for any form of plagiarism. And that's why it's so important that you have read the difference as we talked about before, between the direct quoting versus other formats that you are writing using your own words, and using appropriate quotations if you are quoting directly from other people's work. So again, this is the only way you can submit an assignment, and that goes for anything in terms of case studies, in terms of other assignments. So I hope that makes sense. And obviously the assignment in this case is going to be within the case study. So, you're going to have your questions, and then, you're going to answer those accordingly. So let's go back to our assignment. So that is your case study folder. And then, we are basically going to have two major, assignments in addition to the case studies. One is going to be a collaborative group assignment. You are basically going to be divided into groups, and way back when I mentioned that for week 2 the instructor will create these groups. So you will have your own little group to communicate with, and usually it's 4 or 5 members of the group, and you are going to decide on who is going to do what task for this presentation. There is a discussion board function that I will show you in the group tab, where you can communicate with each other, just within your group. But whatever kind of communication format you want to use, you feel free to do so. That means you can use cell phones, you can use Skype, you can however you want to set it up. So basically here it gives you the whole project in a PDF format. The due date, and we actually even give you heads up on, all your submission is due in 2 weeks when it comes to your weekly material. So a little reminders there. And then, basically it's going to tell you, an overview of, what the expectations are for this assignment. You will find more details, however, if you go into, the specific, group project. So again, this will be a little later in the semester, so we'll go into more details when we get to that part. The other assignments is an individual assignment, but it's also what we call signature assignment for this course. In this case, the signature assignment means that we, as the nursing program, need to demonstrate effective communication with diverse client populations, discipline, and staff, ensuring optimal health promotion. If you have taken courses in the SPS nursing program before, you know that every course has a signature assignment. So this signature assignment is basically a case study, pathophysiology case study, and a teaching plan. Again, you have the due date, and then you have the learning objectives, and then basically the directions, what to do. And I'm sure again that there are going to be questions that as we get closer to this is at the very end of the semester. It's due May 5th. You're going to have plenty of time to read this carefully, and then again, ask questions. But for both of these assignments, the group assignment and this is the same principle when it comes to submission. So you just click on the link, and as you can see, you have the rubric, you have the due date, and then you have the overview of the assignment, and then again the plagiarism and Safe Assign. So that is your assignment tab. We already went over the discussion board tab, so I'm going to go into the next one, which is ePortfolio. I'm sure the majority of you already have an ePortfolio set up, but if you don't, then it is needed for this course, because the signature assignment is basically going to be uploaded also to the ePortfolio site in addition to your Blackboard site. It's here very detailed information how to set up your ePortfolio. There's plenty of assistance. There are tutorials you can watch, and also logon information, etc. So again, if you have questions, reach out to the tech support at in the ePortfolio program at SPS, and they will definitely help you. Next down, we have the group tab. So this is going to be empty at this point, but once the instructor has created the groups, you will actually see the groups being listed here, and then the means of communication. So for example, there will be individual discussion boards that you can share information, and also other means of you reaching out to your fellow group mates. Again, that will be discussed further. Then you have the Tools tab. These are just different tools within the Blackboard site. As you can see, we have announcement links. Blackboard, you will not be using this much, but just being aware that it is here. The grading tab is once we get started with the course, you will see your grades as they come up, and then if you need to send emails to any of your fellow classmates, you also have an email tab for that, and also to your instructor. There's also Blackboard help, but more importantly, we have the Newman's library. This again was on your course information tab as well. Here you have a direct link to the library from the library tab. So a very easy way to get access. Please, feel free to use this, as we go along. So let's close that out. And then finally, you have an APA guideline. So this is going to be also very valuable in terms of, avoiding any plagiarism, appropriately reference material that you use. Don't forget that it's not just a reference list at the end of an assignment, but that you also have proper citation throughout any assignment. This, should have been taught to you earlier, but it's always good with a reminder, and we do see that sometimes those reminders are needed, so please again use this resource. Here you have citation style charts, little cheat sheets that you can use, also very short APA kind of guidelines, these are again very helpful. Okay, so I think that kind of concludes the navigation throughout this course. Again, I'm sure there's going to be many questions as we go along, usually more intense in the first couple of weeks of the course. And I think that's why it's so important to use our discussion board Ask Your Instructor tab, or thread, so I can appropriately answer to all the questions that you do have. So again, I welcome you to Nursing 612 Advanced Practice Pathophysiology, and I'm very much looking forward to working with all of you throughout this semester. Have a great day.